old boys decided they wanted to build a pavilion, they started to raise money, and they had a thermometer there, a great big, huge thing that they had painted up to show the amount of money that was coming in. But the level of the money just never seemed to move much at all. Then they went to Paris Magdalenos to see if he'd be interested in he was the architect to building the pavilion. So when the price came back, it was for building a single level building, and the cost was going to be huge. And Charles got an awful shock when he saw what it was, and he discussed it with the old boys. I think that's how it came about. And they decided to get him to take on the project. Paris said that they could raise more money and do the next level at another stage, which would be on the Never Never. So anyway, Charles decided to investigate the insurance from the barn that he'd got built several years ago for the apprentices. There was a gap in the EIT being built, and the building apprentices had nowhere to go for a couple of years. So he got the barn up and running, he got round the merchants and things, and the apprentices went over to EIT, and it was used for other things. They had a brainstorming thing in it. They decided to raise money to put on a kitchen, and the boys could have their lunch there and lunched and play ping pong in their lunch hour. Then anyway, one night the barn burnt down. There was a faulty switch, and when they were short of money for the pavilion, Charles suddenly thought, well, was there insurance on that barn? And he thought, and he was sure there was. So he went and saw the headmaster. Headmaster said, no insurance. So Charles said, well, I'm going to explore this, I'm sure there was. And sure enough, there was something like about $40,000 of insurance, which really made it possible to do the pavilion.
Yes.
If it wasn't for that, I don't know if it would ever have been built. Well, the rate
If it ended up at 100,000,
yes.
that's 40% of the total costs.
Yes.
Recovered from insurance. Well,
Yes.
obviously, Charles, you made sure that the barn was insured.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was very important.
Yes. So that money could then be put into the pavilion building
Yes.
fund.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So then the old boys came to Charles and said, well, will you manage this whole thing? And he agreed to do that. And that's how the whole thing came to be built, with Charles going around all the merchants and all that sort of thing, getting prices and keeping everything as low as possible, because he had a lot of contacts in that line, you see. He project managed the whole thing, but he also got on the end of the paintbrush and painted all the lounge. I distinctly remember the lounge. He called for volunteers to help him paint and wallpaper the lounge. Well, the headmaster turned up and David Appley turned up. And the headmaster started to help with the painting, and then he kicked the paint tin over, so he went off. David Appley learned how to do the wallpapering enough to do what he needed at home, and he went off. So Charles did all the rest of it up. I don't know about downstairs, but he did all the upstairs anyway.
This is the pavilion in very early 1981.
Yes.
All right, so Charles, if you just turn it around so the camera can see it.
You hold it that way?
Yes. So later, and the final product
Right.
in its
That way.
golden glory.
Who painted the outside, Charles? Who painted the outside of it? Do you remember?
No.
I know you painted the inside.
When Charles resigned in 1990, an extensive resume of his time at the school and what he achieved was written up in the Scindian. It says, Mr. Smith will always be associated with the buildings of the school. The Centennial Project Committee in 1972 made it its priority the pavilion from which first 15 games in athletics may be viewed in comfort and where after-match functions may be held. Mr. Smith was made chairman of the building committee and the present-day pavilion was completed in 1981 at the cost of approximately $100,000. The building of the pavilion was a major undertaking which was brought to completion with the leadership and enthusiasm of Mr. Smith. The building is really a monument to Mr. Smith.
Well, may I suggest I can ask Beth to say,
He
Yes.
always says it's the best 30 years of his life.